Testing 1, 2, 3.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 165. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the evening of Wednesday, March the 25th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. Got a guest on the podcast, and it's via the long lines. The podcast we had Friday, the Friday night podcast, the Friday night special that we had with the Mad Dog and the Harp Dog, that's the last podcast we're going to have for quite some time for the foreseeable future with guests in studio, just because of the COVID-19 pandemic that's going through. Just being safe. We did the social distancing during the podcast Friday and everything else. We were very cautious. But we're not even going to go that far. In fact, social distancing should be, I think, 6 feet. My guest today via long line is probably about 150 miles away. And Colin Schowe, remember him from KLPW. Colin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, James.
Now you left Union, Washington area, and you're now in. Tell everybody where you are.
I am in Moberly, Missouri, half hour north of Columbia, working for regional radio, which is a group of 4, technically 5 stations, if you want to count the AM/FM all-talk combo we got. But the primary station that a lot of people might be familiar with would be KRES 104.7, which has just a massive single that can just about reach. It'll reach into Gasconade County all the way to the Gasconade-Franklin County line. So that's the one where you're most likely to hear my voice to this day right now.
That's a 100,000 watt superstation. Big FM signal. That thing goes not to Kansas City, not quite to Kansas City, but probably about 60, 70 miles east of Kansas City. Yep. It's a big signal. Big signal.
Yep.
And well, now let me ask you first: how did you wind up from the big media market of Union, Washington, to Moberly?
Yes,
and I say that very tongue in cheek, by the way.
It's an interesting story. To put it simply, last spring, this time last spring was not a pleasant one for me. It was. It kind of all started with the last snowstorm we had in 2019 on March 4th. I was leaving from home to go to the station on a Monday morning. We had probably about 2 to 4 inches of snow fell throughout the St. Louis area. And just full disclosure, I was living with my parents the whole time I was in Washington.
And you're still at KLPW at this time.
Yes. This is still fully gainfully employed, but I basically coming out of the house. My car is parked down in a little side parking lot below the house, and thing I've always been reminded by, always been very careful about, is water runs down the hillside from our house down this parking lot in the pool next to where my car is parked. Obviously, if it snows, that means there's ice around to be careful. Temperature was supposed to rise that day, so I was running a little behind trying to get out to the station, so I kind of just put the ice behind me, and I fell and broke my wrist.
Ouch!
That was a great start to the springtime right there. Unfortunately, I was in a cast for 7 weeks, but did not need surgery for that, but. During that time and in the process, actually, I guess ironically, right as I was about ready to get out of my cast, I think probably I had a week. I get Buzz Eckelkamp comes into the station to break the news to me that I was being laid off, and they were cutting afternoon news out entirely. Last newscast, I believe at KLPW now is noon.
Okay.
The last newscast, and after that, it's just sports on the daily basis. And they may have changed something since that time in April of last year, but at that time, that was Buzz's plan, and that alleviated the need for me to be full time. Unfortunately.
Now, did they offer you part-time, or is this something you'd rather just not get into?
No, they offered me part-time. So I continued to do games with John Covington. I continued to come in on Saturday mornings to do the sports club show with him as well. But everything else was null and void as far as my role with KLPW. I actually, while I was laid off, picked up attempting to umpire Little League baseball games again, something I had done all through high school, college, and even, well, actually, no, I did stop in college, but I tried picking up on that, but all the games kept getting rained out, so I think I umpired like 3 nights all summer before I got hired up here in Moberly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how did you get the job up in? Because I guess now you're part time at the radio station. You need part-time job's fine for a high school kid, but you're not a high school kid. You're a man making a living. You need a full-time job.
Yeah, that was it was kind of odd how that worked. I kind of just, I think, sat back that first week, but between trying to take care of the final medical bills and having COBRA enacted as well, like, well, better go file for unemployment. And I guess call me naive to the system. I didn't even know it was an actual requirement. You have to minimum. I think it's three jobs you have to apply to a week in order to get those unemployment checks. So it was actually good to file once I did. Kind of kick me in the rear, and tends to be the way I would apply for these. I usually I've always been a little bit of a night owl, which is kind of contradictory to how radio is generally supposed to work. A lot of those shifts are early morning shifts. But I was scrolling through job selections, I think probably about 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I came across the one up here. And
the one in Moberly.
Yes, yes. I think they had posted it maybe an hour or two ago once I was viewing it. So I was probably one of the first people that had applied for it. And, it was right up my alley. It was all kind of filled in the same detail for what I had done in KLPW. It was specific in sports with also focus in news. Some other odds and ends, not too different from what I had done. So, prior to that, I was actually having a hard time finding radio jobs. A lot of what I was applying for was some sports management jobs that I probably didn't have a good chance getting, or even actually some roles working in sports information departments in colleges. And I think in one case I applied at as a professor for I think it was the Missouri Southern, actually, is what I applied at to be a professor, and I don't even remember what the title was. But I was just kind of carpet bombing at that point. But when I saw this one, I thought, that one I actually feel pretty good about applying and having a shot at. And had to, as a result of being one of the first to apply right when that job opened, I had a couple weeks to wait on that process of when they were going to get back to me.
And then they got back to you. You applied, and they hired you, I guess.
Yeah. It was kind of and again, not really having had to do a job search really before. Here's the thing to know is I had a relationship with KLPW from the end of my senior year in high school in 2007. So really, KLPW professionally was all I had really known for all those years. They kept bringing me back part-time, even after I graduated college. I graduated college in 2011. I did not become full-time with KLPW until 2015, that summer. So, the pay kept upping, with the hours, but, it took a while for me to get in, which tells you, the loyalty I had for the station there. But, I was unfamiliar with how a job search really worked, and certainly different employers are going to do different things. But when I was actually about ready to call the station and see where my position was at, because I hadn't heard for 2 weeks, and I think about the day before I was going to make that call just to check with them, because I know they don't want to be bothered. I actually got the call from the operations manager regional radio, Brad Boyer, and he called and was quite excited. Said, like to meet you. When can you meet? And I looked at the calendar and said, well, tomorrow afternoon. That was absolutely. So, yeah, I certainly didn't have any plans the next day, so I jetted up there, and I was just expecting standard, job interview, and it really was. And then he kind of took me around the different stations. I kind of in the building, I started to get a little suspicious. Like, is he going to be offering me the job? And we get done, goes, the job's yours if you want it. And the pay wasn't going to be significantly higher than KLPW, but they give you a few days to think about it and get back to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I weighed the options. I talked to close friends. I talked to the parents. And eventually it was kind of outweighing weighing the good with the bad, and I opted to take it.
And then you moved up to Moberly.
Yep. And that's actually another perk of all this was big concern. You're moving 2 hours away from Washington to a city I'd only been a couple times before. Actually,
hang on just a second, Colin. When you're talking, are you moving or something? Because sometimes sometimes it's really clear, and then sometimes you're cutting out.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a habit of shifting my phone in my hand every once in a while to where I might tilt it away from my mouth. Yeah,
the audio is much better when that phone stays super tight. So continue, please.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the one of the big concerns going in, taking a job 2 hours away, my familiarity with Moberly was 2 prior trips there for American Legion tournaments with John and with KLPW,
mm-hmm.
and those were I think 2007 and 2013. It had been a while. But one of the draws, though, was Brad had said, look, the guy you'll be replacing from Chicago, Illinois, moving back to be closer to family. His apartment will be up, and we've got a good relationship with the realtor. We can get in contact with her and get in contact with Ben if you like the place and if you want it, and make that work. So that was a big help. I was able to look at the I don't even know if you really call it an apartment. It's more a townhouse. It's 2 stories plus basement, so it's a pretty nice living all the way around. But I was able to get in and see that, and that was another nice, comfortable draw then to be reassured that I was making a very, very comfortable, conscientious decision to take this.
So that way you had a place to live that you were comfortable with, and they made it as comfy, cozy, and homey as they possibly could.
Yep. And as a result, I didn't have to, they didn't have to wait on me too long. I think getting hired, Brad was hoping to have me up here by, I think it was July 15th was kind of his target. And by virtue of getting the apartment situation solidified, my first day up here was on July 1st of 2019.
There you go. So ahead of schedule.
Yep, absolutely, and that was big too. The station is it's heavy in the sports, all across all 4 of the stations. But basically, the summer they do not cover American Legion baseball up here. Moberly just does not really have quite the following that Washington's Legion program has.
Sure.
So we ended up with base for what they keep the sports. Primarily the sports down, basically everybody hopping on during the summer is they'll have everyone go do different remote sites at mainly fairs and other events around the towns that Crest covers, which again, such a huge reach. There was a lot of different places to cover. So I was able to go on two remotes where I was with one of the other guys who's actually younger than me. He's actually from New York, oddly enough.
Really?
Amazing. I've actually never gotten around to really asking, how did you wind up in Moberly, Missouri? And the amazing part is he's actually stayed here for close to 5 years on the job. But he and I went on a couple of the fairs, and then I had a couple in solo I mean, the Boone County Fair